Welcome to Graduate Space Radio. My name is Chris Palmore, and this is a special gratitude birthday episode. I've got a new friend, Howard Behar, on the line here. He's an author, a speaker, advisor. He's a servant leader and a champion of people. And I don't want to say much more about him right now because we're going to have a great conversation. We're going to welcome on to this special birthday episode. Hey, Howard, how you doing?
I'm doing great this morning. It's a beautiful day up here in the Northwest, a little chilly. I'm not quite ready for the chili, but that's okay. I'm heading to Palm Springs here pretty soon.
Well, it looks like you've got a lot to look forward to, a lot to be grateful for.
Yeah, I do have a lot to be grateful for. It's been a good year. COVID has been tough, but I found that my wife and I we got through this. We've had our shots, and we probably spent more time together in this last year and a half than in our whole 45 years of marriage. And we cooked together, we cleaned together, we did everything, and I think we really got to know each other even better than we did before.
That's beautiful. That's obviously there's ups and downs in any situation, but like you just said, the fact that in this situation you all be able to spend more time together, more memories, more moments. You're looking back and going, well, this time I got to know my wife better, which is an amazing thing when you think. You probably already thought, I already know this woman, right?
Yeah, right. Well, you think after 45 years, but what's interesting about marriage, right? At least in my marriage, I'm always amazed at what comes out of my wife's mouth. You think you know somebody, but it always keeps what I call a little tension in the line. It's always new and interesting because she's always growing.
So what? Speaking to that, what recently has come out of her mouth that just kind of made you laugh, or one of those moments is something fun you can share with us?
Oh, well, my wife has got a PhD in social work. She's an oncology social worker. And so she works with families and people that are dying of cancer or have cancer, maybe not necessarily dying.
Right.
So she knows more about this subject than most people in the country. She and two other social workers wrote this textbook that is a textbook for oncology social workers. So I've always, she was giving a speech the other day and I was looking at her notes. I said, why do you even need those notes? I said, you don't need any notes. You know exactly what you're talking about. You know a ton about this, and she said to me, well, I want to make sure that I stay on track because my job is to help people survive cancer and I don't want to miss anything. And that's why I have these notes. And, it's funny about that when she could, it could come right off the top of her head, but she's so concerned about others that she wants to make sure she gets it all in.
That's beautiful. My mom passed away from cancer some years back, and I'll tell you, her doctor, the love he had for my mother, and the way he handled the situation, in the traumatic moments. One of the best memories I have is we were all sitting there. It was basically his moment to tell all of us that they couldn't medically do anything more. And he looked at my mother and with just so much love. And he said, to quote Monty Python, "You're not dead yet. And we don't mourn the living."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which was just, It's such a beautiful, he was, pointing out he's not God. He doesn't know what's going to happen. Yeah. But in the same sense that, he was just pointing out to us that, she's here now. That's how I took it. It's like, she's here now. Let's appreciate, this time we have because, and at the end of the day, it's like, we never know how much time we're going to have. Every moment, honestly, is you just, you know what I mean? Like you can either look at a moment as it's nothing or it's everything. Yeah. It's a choice, right?
Yeah, it's a choice. Yeah, exactly. I always say, I want to leave this earth with zero gas in the tank. And whenever that time comes, and so I'm always trying to make sure that I'm doing all the things that I want to do. And loving the people that I want to love and making sure that they know it and trying to change how people lead in this country. So I just stay focused on that. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen.
Right. That's a beautiful way to live. I'm actually interviewing a man who has a brain tumor later, and he wrote a book, and he's coming out, and he was nice enough to write for my book. And I told him, I said, well, would you like to do the interview now or later? And he said, let's do it as soon as possible. And when I mentioned that to another friend of mine, he said, well, Jay understands, he's waking up really appreciating his days. And if something's important to him, he doesn't put it off. He just says, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, speaking of your servant leadership, I feel like I love to speak to how individuals meet each other, because I feel like if you're sitting in a grateful state, it's really easy to like look back in just little moments and go, how did you and I end up in this room? So I feel like I discussed this with you when we talked months back, but I just love sharing those little connections. On my end, I ended up putting a call out last December to ask people to write about their experience with the year 2020. Obviously I didn't tell me your grateful moments, but it did come from gratitude space. So
Right.
you had a little bit of guidance because of the website address, but out of that, my friend Peter shared it with a lot of people in Hong Kong. And one of those was our mutual friend, Andrea Cloth.
Yeah.
And I have a really wonderful memory of waking up on my New Year's, because Peter was before us in Hong Kong. He had put it out. So I woke up with letters. People had already written things about their year. And Andrea wrote this beautiful letter about seeing last year through her son's eyes. And it was just what a great perspective and reflective moment to look at a year. And that's from conversations with her. She mentioned, I should meet you, because she just said she had so much affection and love for you. And she said, he's a great man. He cares about people. I really would like to connect you to.
Yeah, Andrea's quite an exceptional human being. And we just met by accident, right? I think she was an engineer at Boeing. I can't even remember what she was doing.
Yeah. Well, speaking, it's the same way she met you because of your book.
Yeah, right.
Because it's not about the coffee. So I thought it was kind of interesting. Like, I met her because I was in the middle of getting a book, and then you met her because you put a book out and you went and spoke on our campus.
Right. Yeah, and we've had, I don't know, it's been a long time, our relationship.
Yeah. So what, I read It's Not About the Coffee. I really enjoyed it. You had some this wonderful, it's been a couple months since I read it, but I did read the whole thing. I really enjoyed it. I had a whole bunch of notes, because I was initially thinking we could have a different conversation, but because it's your birthday, I like, if you want to speak a little bit to, who in your life is like a servant leader to you, Howard, who has been, who's kind of led the way for your, how you lived your life, like you said, about looking to leadership and that being such an important part of your life.
Well, I think it began with my father, actually. He was a servant leader. I mean, my dad never made a lot of money. He had a small mom and pop grocery store in Seattle, and I think the most money he ever made was $18,000 in a year. But he had this little mom and pop grocery store, which gave him freedom. But he taught me the value of that the people that you're serving aren't your customers. They're your neighbors, they're your friends, and they're human beings. And quick story. So when I was about 8 or 9 years old, I'd come from school and go right to the store, right? Because both my parents were working in the store. And I was up at the front counter as he was ringing one of the customers, groceries in. And so, this is in the days of the old hand crank and the little buttons on the top that you'd press, and a little tape would come up. And anyway, he had charge accounts, and he'd take the tape and attach it to the little book that he had for each customer. And so he rang up the customer, and then he said to me, Howard, go get me a couple of baskets of strawberries. And so I went in the back and I got a couple of baskets of strawberries. My dad put them in the bag and the customer left. And I was old enough to realize my dad hadn't rung the strawberries up on the cash register. And I said, Dad, you forgot to ring those up. And he said, Howard, not everything we do in life do we need to get paid for. These people are not our customers. They're our friends and our neighbors. And I happen to know they love fresh fruit and they love strawberries. And right now they can't afford to buy fruit. So it was just my way of saying thank you. And it took me a long. I didn't really think about that lesson until I was in my 20s, late teens, early 20s, and that not everything we do in life do we need to get paid for, or rewarded for, or recognized for. We do things because we want to do them. They're the right thing to do. And as you say, having gratitude for the people we get to serve.
Right. That's a beautiful story. So did you end up working? I love that about your father and how you looked up. My mom, she had her own business, and I have memories of being in their store at a really young age and just seeing the love there and the independence in that. And, she cared about her customers and their well-being so much. That was such a huge part of her life. So we definitely have that in common. Did you end up working in that store when you were a child?
No, I was because my dad retired by the time I was 12.
Oh, okay.
My dad
Wow.
was 50 when I was born. And so by the time he had 62, small mom and pop grocery stores were a thing of the past. The big chains had taken over, and he just said, I'm not going to do this anymore. He was the kind of guy, he was up at 4 o'clock every morning, going down to Produce Row in Seattle, getting the fresh produce, bringing it back, cleaning it up, open the store at 8 o'clock, close it down about 6 o'clock, come home, eat his dinner in about 11 seconds, go sit in his big chair and fall asleep.
Oh, wow.
He worked hard his whole life,
Wow. So he had you at 50. Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I do. I'm the baby.
Oh, okay.
My brother's 10 years older. My sister she passed away last year, is 14 years old.
Sorry to hear about that.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, being this is a birthday episode, what are there any thoughts? If it's been a year since your last birthday, what, obviously, I know you're a guy that studies. You talk to a lot of people, and you're learning. Is there anything this past year anything new you've learned, or some moments that you'd like to share that stick out to you?
New that I've learned. Well, I think COVID has been such a big learning experience. It's the fear that it has taken over, and I don't mean about getting sick, but the fear in the country. We forgot about our faith. One of my favorite quotes by Ray Kroc is, "Turn your fear into faith." That we will get through this, and I think that surprised me how much fear has been created, and fear of taking the vaccine, fear of being forced to take the vaccine. So fear of people thinking that freedom is all about me, when freedom is really about we, and freedom has accountability and responsibility attached to it. But that fear that somehow somebody is doing something to me, or somebody isn't doing enough for me.
Right.
What happened to we? It has kind of really shocked me, actually. And that's been a real learning experience for me.
Yeah, I've experienced that too. I guess it's hard to be surprised nowadays how groups are going to act, or like you said, what's in it for the whole mentality of what's in it for me. Before it was like, well, we need a vaccine, and then it's like it was here, and then it's like we don't need it. So it's very counterintuitive, the structure of society.
And being judgmental, instead of showing gratitude to all these people that are doing all this work, the people that created the vaccines, the different vaccines, the people that are giving the vaccines, the people that are out there trying to convince us to take the vaccines, we do the opposite. It's not everybody, of course, but we do the opposite, and it doesn't make sense to me. I don't get it. I don't get it. But
yeah, my wife's from the country of Colombia, and we got married last November, and as soon as the vaccine was here, we could go get it. It was literally, the first day it was in our age group. We went, we drove, 15 minutes from here and got it. And we're sitting there in line, and I'm just thinking, she's telling me about people in Colombia, like people in her age group of 40. I think maybe this month they could have gotten a vaccine, but she had friends that were traveling to America just to get the vaccine. Like they were getting on a plane from Colombia and flying to Miami, or even another friend getting on a plane and flying to Argentina just for the opportunity to get a vaccine, and then we're here, we get to drive 15 minutes, 30 minutes later, we've got it. And I was just like, how grateful am I that this is so easy?
Yeah. I mean, and for free. I mean, you walk
right.
Nothing, right? You don't even sign your name. They just, take whatever it is. I'm on Medicare, so number and stuff, or insurance number, and and you walk out. I had my third shot 2 weeks ago, so, and my flu shot.
Yeah, and even my wife's a hypochondriac, so basically, if she feels like she's getting sick, we have to take her to Walgreens to get her a COVID test. So she's gone 4 times now just because.
Yeah, she can, right?
Right, exactly. It's the freedom.
Gratitude that we live in the kind of country that we can have that.
Right, because it's not a given, and most people don't have the opportunity at all. And if they do, they have to wait, or it's difficult to get, or there's only so many, and there's an overabundance. Living in this country, just appreciating where you're at. We have such an over amount of abundance here in the in the United States. All my life, I've had an abundance just from being born in the country.
Yeah,
it had nothing to do with me. I just showed up here.
Yeah, absolutely, you and I particularly with, white faces, white men, right? Have had an overabundance the whole time. I never had anybody tell me you're not good enough, you can't, you know, whatever.
Right, right. Well, I mean, part of my morning gratitude practice is I just want to remind myself of the everyday stuff that's so good, the stuff that's easy to forget, right? Because you've lived with it all your life. If that's remembering, there's water coming into the home that, is clean, right? Like how
Plain
big is
water.
that? Electricity, right? A lock on the door,
And the sewage goes away and it hopefully gets treated. Everything, that we have. It's like, I'm 77 I'm going to be 77 years old here this weekend.
Right.
And, you're talking to a guy that barely got out of high school, had a couple of years of community college, and have the opportunity to be president of a company like Starbucks. Who would have ever thought? I mean, it's amazing. Amazes me.
It's so speaking of that though, I would love to, get back to those grateful moments. What if you just wanted to mention just a couple of turns, couple of people and places you were that brought you into that Starbucks realm that ended up being, your career and happened taking that off internationally and just the amazement of all that. Like who? So you were.
The guy.
Go ahead.
The guy that got me. There were two men that helped me get into Starbucks. Didn't help me. They introduced me to Howard Schultz. And one was a guy named Jeff Brotman, who was the co-founder of Costco. And he and I grew up, high school age together. So I had known him forever. And he was on the board of this little tiny company called Starbucks, and helping Howard to figure out how to grow the company. And he introduced me to Howard. And another guy named Jack Rogers, who just passed away 2 weeks ago, one of the most wonderful human beings ever. I found a business to buy, and Jack convinced me that I shouldn't do that I should go to work for Starbucks, and there were, at the time I talked to Jack, there were about 15 stores. When I finally joined, there were 28. But those two guys, if not for them, guiding me, pushing me along, both of them were servant leaders. They would never have described themselves as that, but exactly they were. They served others. And both of them passed away. Both of them, Jack at, almost 90.
Oh,
Jeff was, let's see, 2 years older than I am. So he was 70, he'll be 79, and to lose both those guys in a year was, sad. But to think back how they helped me.
Right. It sounds like, I mean, you said Jack was which I got the names mixed up.
He was a 90-year-old guy that he was actually helping Howard Schultz.
Right. He was the one who helped him. But your other friend that you said you knew as a childhood, at a really young age to be a CEO, to be on the board of Starbucks. I mean, it's almost like at birth you were set up to at least have the opportunity because you knew him.
Yeah. I mean, that old adage, it's not what you know, it's who you know. There's a lot of truth to it. I mean, you have to survive and be successful. You have to know some things. But I always say that, luck is where opportunity meets preparation.
Right. No, I was thinking recently, like, how do I know my best friend? And it was literally because my parents had a certain faith and they chose a certain church in a certain town 25 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, again, like, I didn't have any, but obviously you show up and who you are and all that magic happens and those friendships. But you're talking about when you were a child and it just happened to be in the same city and you happened to go to the same school. And it just, because you were friends through all those years, that moment came and, you had that opportunity. It's amazing.
Yeah. Synchronicity,
Right. I saw a beautiful video I watched this morning because I was doing a little extra homework. It was Howard giving a speech 2018. And he just said he loves you. And it was such a beautiful thing. And I was wondering, speaking, having somebody in public like that, giving you love like that, could you describe, were you that experience?
I was there, and that was Howard. Howard is, what a mensch is? It's a Yiddish term for being just a really good guy. Just, Howard is absolutely that. And he never had any trouble expressing love in the business world, ever. And I didn't either. And that was a special night for me because I got a significant award in the city of Seattle, and he was there to give it to me. And but to hear him say that, it's incredible.
I watched it. It was really beautiful. And, I didn't know much about Howard. And I think it was about 10 years ago. I actually ran a camera on him. He came into town and was doing, I think, a talk for the Kroger company, because maybe they had just started having the stores inside of Kroger's
right.
here in our region. And I heard him talk about his story and everything about going and coming back. And I was really impressed by him. Obviously, I haven't had a conversation with him, but just hearing him speak, that one time left an imprint in my mind for sure.
Yeah, it's an amazing guy.
So let me ask you this: your birthday's here in a few days. So who you said earlier? So you're going to go to Palm Springs. So what's your plans for your birthday? Who are you going to see?
Well, my wife and I are celebrating the day of my birthday, and then the next night we're going out to dinner with a friends of ours, that Les and Sheri Biller, and they have a family foundation that I'm on the board of, and their whole focus is on helping people. And we have classes that you go to for free to learn about entry-level banking jobs or entry-level healthcare jobs, and we primarily serve underserved communities in doing that. And so it's a privilege to be on that board, but I just love them so much, and it's a privilege to be able to go out and celebrate my birthday with them.
So how did you meet Les and Cheryl? What's the story there?
My wife, again, social worker. So she was close friends with the head of social work at City of Hope Hospital down in Duarte by Pasadena, California. And so he knew that I had done a lot of stuff around in leadership. And he invited me and he invited Les to come speak at the same time. So we shared a podium, and that's how we met. And we're both talking and both telling stories, and it was like we're coming from the same place, right? And that began a relationship, but 10, 12 years ago, which, as you get later on in life, it's hard to develop friendships, really significant friendships, and we have, and that's how I met him. And he's been an important part of my life, as his wife has, Sheri has.
That's beautiful. Speaking to you, how did you? So you've been with your wife, you said 50 years. Is that right?
I met my wife 48 years ago.
Okay, so what were the elements? What's the story behind meeting your wife? What were the special circumstances there?
I was 20 days out of a marriage, right?
Mm-hmm.
20 days out of a marriage, and a friend of mine said that somebody I want you to meet, and wanted me to go out on a date, and I said I am not going out on a date. I'm 20 days out of a marriage. The last thing I need is a date. I wasn't even interested. My typical meal was a Der Wiener Schnitzel with a strawberry shake. So, but he just kept pushing, and he was pushing her at the same time. So we went out, and never did I expect. I wasn't even interested in, and that began a journey. And how it goes. And here we are. We've been married, 45 years, and been together for about 48 years.
Wow, that's with me, like after I got divorced, I never saw myself getting married again, and here I am. So it's like that's the thing too. Like when I met my wife, now, it's like when we met, it was just let's have a good time, get to know each other. There were no thoughts of those things happening, and it's I'm sorry about that. So I can't. It's amazing what happens when you just meet people and you go out and you just never know what's going to happen. And you just kind of keep yourself open to possibilities.
You never know, right? And it's it's been a journey. Marriage is not easy, and but it's rewarding if you stay with it, if you can. And my first one I couldn't, but we've gotten through it. We both had been married before. We knew about the rocks in the river a little bit. We didn't know about our rocks that we were going to hit together, but we've gotten through them, and now we have 6 grandchildren, and
oh wow,
wonderful life.
So do those some of those grandchildren live near you, or are they spread out across the country?
No,
okay,
they all live in Seattle. They live 2 blocks apart in Seattle.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it's perfect.
That's beautiful. That's so beautiful.
Some came up for the weekend. My daughter and her 2 girls. So it was great.
That's wonderful. Yeah, my dad lives about 30 minutes from here, and I try to see him once every week or two, and we talk on the phone. And having that family close is such a blessing, especially with the fact people are so spread out nowadays because we can be.
I have so many friends where their kids are all over the place, and I watch them. Many of them are moving to be close to their kids, and I say, "What happens if your kids decide to move again?" Well, then we'll move again. They want to be by their grandkids, It used to be when I grew up, the families my mother was from a family of 11 children, 9 of which survived the United States. They all lived in Seattle. They were all close. All these kids, all my cousins, that's where we were. And then all of a sudden, in about the 60s, people started, moving out.
Right. I guess as travel became easier and cities became bigger.
Companies were moving people and all that, and I've moved a couple of times, but for the most part, I've been in the Northwest.
That's great. Well, let me ask, so if you had a birthday wish this coming year, what do you have any, what would that be?
If I have a birthday wish, you mean for myself personally?
Sure.
Or just a wish?
You could go general. It's your call. It's open to any question.
My general wish is that we begin the journey of understanding as a country and as a people, that we figure out what our greater purpose is together, right? That unites us, and that we would understand that we're all in it trying to make that happen, and just to have some, less rhetoric, less anger, less of that, and more kindness and more love.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that we're behind all of it, we're all people, right? We're all humans.
Yeah.
We're all connected. We're here together, like you said.
And we're all struggling. No, it doesn't make any difference. I started Starbucks International, so we opened stores in 50 some countries. So I had to deal with 50 different cultures.
Right.
And I had to expose myself. I had to learn all those kinds of things. And I came out of that experience realizing that we're all the same. Do we eat different foods? Do we maybe worship different gods sometimes? Do we, whatever? But for the most part, we all want to be treated with respect and dignity. We all want to grow as human beings. We all want to be loved and give love, right? And, the rest of it is just commentary. It's stuff we use to think that we're different, but we're not. We're not. At the end of the day, whether you're a Muslim living in Saudi Arabia, you want for your family.
Right.
Whether a Taoist living in Japan, you want for you and your family. Whether you're a Catholic living in Rome, you want for you and your family. If you're a Jew living in Tel Aviv, you want for you and your family, right? And those aren't at odds with each other. We should all be helping each other to get what each other wants and needs. That should be it. But instead, we're worried about what the other person gets instead of, worrying about how we can help the other person.
Right. I love the adage of, help, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll end up finding what you want, that whole,
absolutely.
the giving's where it's at, and then stuff comes back around, but it's those relationships where you step out. Speaking to you and your time today, and even our conversation before, I'll tell you, I remember when Andrea mentioned you, and then I went and listened to a podcast you were on, and I have a memory of your voice. And the gentleman at the end said, how do people get in touch with you? And you said, you read off your email address and phone number. And I said, this is a man who cares about people so much and is so open to helping that he's putting that out into the world. And I was like, I just knew that I wanted to talk to you and meet you, because you're a real person who cares about people and you want to help. And that's a beautiful thing in the world. And just knowing you and having a conversation with you is a blessing to me. So thank you.
Well, thank you for inviting me. So let's put it out there again. My cell phone number is 206-972-7776. And my email address is hb and my name, howardbehar.com. So, I may be slow getting back, but I always get back to everybody.
That's beautiful. I'm going to close this out here. If you just wait one moment, I'd love to just say goodbye to you too. So I'm Chris with Howard, just saying, well, Howard, when you see this, it comes up. Happy birthday, Howard. I appreciate your thoughts and ideas and just that light you put out in the world, and that you, again, like you just said, you care about people. And I really do appreciate your time today. I want you to have an excellent birthday, and I look forward to having a conversation similar to this with you next year.
Okay. I'm closing in on 80, man.
So, yeah, wonderful. All right, well, everybody just, I'm Chris with Howard, just reminding you have a lot to be grateful for, and even if it's not your birthday today, you can always appreciate the things and the people in your life.